All right, three, two, one. Hello and welcome to the AI Business Podcast. I'm Tien, the creative producer of Informa Tech, and joining me is the man who's busy rebuilding the AI business website, Max Smolaks.
Hello there.
Also joining the podcast is DCD's deputy editor and a contributing editor for AI Business, the man wearing too many hats, Sebastian Moss.
Hello, everybody.
And on episode 3 of the podcast, we discuss Microsoft replacing journalists with AI. And yes, computer has been picking our news for quite a while now, which explains why I bought 3 USB-C chargers and have 5 different app blocker apps on my phone. Well, I saw it, I liked it, I clicked it, and I bought it. And the race to self-driving future continues. And our marquee topic, the tech war between US and China. It's past, present, and future. Who's winning? What's the latest? We're gonna break it down for you, but first, how are you guys doing over there?
It's been an interesting week.
I mean, I hope everybody stays safe and hopefully America can get to a more relaxed and calm state in the future by the next podcast.
We've built a new website in partnership with Light Reading. This is a resource you might know if you're interested in telecommunications. And there's a whole bunch of new things in there. We've got AI Exchange for industry content, obviously vetted by our editorial team. We've got a practitioner portal developed specifically for people who actually build artificial intelligence tools. So hopefully it's going to be useful for, like data scientists and developers. And of course, news and analysis that hopefully you've come to expect from AI Business. Also, a very important note, our trademark orange is now trademark purple.
So go on AIbusiness.com and check out the website. It's got a real human being behind it, putting the news out there. What doesn't have real human being behind it? Microsoft News. They do have real human being, but they did just lay off a bunch of journalists and reporters and who are tasked to kind of handpick the news, and now they're replacing them with an algorithm with artificial intelligence, and in hopes to kind of more accurately predict and know what you like. It's one of those Big Brother app thing where they kind of figure out what you like and give it to you. I should say that this is nothing new. Google News uses it. It's all over YouTube, Netflix, and other places. But this is kind of a glaring example that people are losing their jobs to AI. Surprisingly, though, I did happen to go on MSN.com to check out what their news is like, which I did not know still exists.
Does anybody actually know what MSN stands for? Because I honestly don't.
Microsoft News.
So it actually stands for Microsoft Network.
Okay, that makes more sense. But again, who's going there for news?
I'm a journalist. I've been reading news so like professionally for 8 years. I've never consciously clicked on an MSN link.
I take no joy in people losing their jobs, especially other journalists that would then be competing with me for jobs. But it was a lot of. I was surprised that they had 50-odd journalists doing just aggregation, not actually writing anything, just picking news.
I go on my Apple News. Now, I'm glad the first 5 items are kind of picked by human. Once I scroll one level down, all those stuff are stuff I don't need. Like, I was in the hunt for an iPad. Once I bought it, it's still giving me, here's another 5 gadgets you'll need. Here's the 5 gadgets you will never live without. Will we ever come to a point where the AI can sort through what I actually want and give me fair balance?
The irony is, so the first wave of the internet kind of gutted journalism. We're still experiencing that now. So those algorithms meant that ad revenues and ways journalists make money just cratered. So we all had to start going after clicks and doing these ridiculous headlines, these 5 things you can't live without stories. And then now the new algorithms can only sift through all this rubbish journalism. And that's all designed to game those algorithms because they're desperate for those clicks rather than sustainable audiences. So you have the content is getting worse because of these algorithms, and it's just in this feedback loop. And I don't know where it's going to go in the future. I don't actually think it's going to get fair and balanced. I think it's going to get worse and worse.
Will this potentially divide our viewpoint further because it's just giving you more of what I want? Like, I do check out Fox News every once in a while. Just I want to know what other people are thinking. But it's out of my own free will. Like, the YouTube will never do it. Like, it would never give me the other viewpoint.
I think if you look at the convulsions that are kind of gripping the US right now, it's one of those things where you don't want to give too much power to social media. Obviously, what this is about is decades and decades of injustice and underfunding of social movements and overfunding of police force and stuff like that. But it's also hugely down to, like you were saying, this split where you have people living in completely different worlds in their minds. They go outside, it's the same world, but when they go on their computer, they go on their phone, they go on their TV, it's a starkly different world.
Yeah, and it's like the extreme content is the content that does really well.
Mm.
Like nobody does well on moderate talking points. Like you need to be either this side or that side. We see now that it's a very dangerous problem because the two sides don't see eye to eye, and they don't even want to listen to each other. The driver as a profession is going away, and
great segue, by the way.
So what happened this week is Volkswagen and Ford have finally cemented their pact around Argo AI, the sort of self-driving car company. It's a very expensive partnership. Volkswagen had to pay 2.6 billion in order to become a part of it, including 1.6 billion as Audi's autonomous driving unit. So Audi's autonomous driving unit will become a part of Argo AI, and the two companies will essentially share self-driving tech. They're going to collaborate together. So these guys have competed for nearly a century, and now they're gonna collaborate. And what this suggests to me is self-driving functionality will not be a differentiator for smart cars of the future. Self-driving functionality will come as standard, and they will compete on other things, on specific products and services.
What this partnership says to me is that these car companies have been studying what happened to mobile phones. And they saw that Google came in and said, hey, we have this platform, it's free. Don't worry, you can use this operating system. Relax, don't worry about it. And now all these different smartphone companies are in Android's pocket. Google has so much power of them, and it makes all the money on the services and the extra additional things that these hardware manufacturers now have no control over.
Yeah. So they're gonna own it equally, have an equal share of voice, and essentially, this at least this part of the self-driving car is gonna be standard. Another investment announced this week comes into Didi. They do sort of like ride sharing. They do food deliveries. They do all the stuff that Uber does. Had a massive self-driving operation developing self-driving cars. They are now spinning it off first in a separate business unit, and as far as we understand now, into a completely separate company with 500 million initial budget. That's been open to venture capital, and a bunch of people have invested, including a certain Vision Fund too.
SoftBank always betting on winners other than all the times it bet on losers. Yeah, I think if you look at just a few years ago, investing in any tech company was kind of a safe bet just because there were more people investing in it and it was a nice bubble. But COVID has forced a lot of people to look at burn rates and how so many companies in Silicon Valley don't actually have sustainable business models. And that means a lot of investments from SoftBank have gone below the value of the money they've put in. Most notably, obviously, WeWork and then Uber as well.
Yeah. And because actually, like I haven't heard about WeWork during the pandemic. Do we assume that it's gonna, like murder their business?
It's an interesting one because some people are saying because we don't know what the future of work is going to be for people, that there might be a shift to flexible offices where you kind of expand when you want people to come into the office and you can shrink again. So there is actual runway for them, but the problem is they're still dealing with the fact that their valuation was so inflated earlier on that they have a lot of ground to catch up to even break even on investments.
Me having worked 3 years in a WeWork office, my experience is just I rather be in a corporate office because WeWork office is full of very loud and obnoxious people on their phones pacing in in the shared office area in the lobby, and their dogs, everybody bring their dogs for some reason, and the dog will come to you when the door is shut. Somehow the dog find a way to enter our office, and it would just like cuddle around me, and I had no power to remove it from my lap, and without being yelled at by girls that I'm a monster.
You are a monster.
Well, I do like dogs. I just don't like other people's dogs, like on my lap when I'm trying to work. On top of the fact that the coffee was terrible and the bathroom's always dirty. I mean, the idea is great, but you're right. It would be very interesting to see let's say 6 months from now, what's happening with WeWork. And
it was always a crazy business because it was based on renting from someone else that owns the property and then reselling it.
This probably varies between the world, but like what WeWork is mainly famous for in London, especially among journalists, is obviously the free beer, right? That was the selling point. That was the genius marketing move that made WeWork in this country. And this is everything everybody talked about. And the beer is objectively terrible.
Yes.
Because these people are not bar people, and like it's just like you have to understand that the beer is an ecosystem. Like you have to clean and maintain it, and essentially what we had is just like week in, week out for months at an end is you queue up for your free beer and you get like 3/4 foam.
And this is not a knock on anybody across the pound, but the people who would drink the beer and enjoy it right at the time it's available, in our offices at least, are the people from UK. They were just like, "Oh, it's done. It's beer o'clock. That's all. Get it." And they would just start drinking beer. I'm like, "Yeah, but that's not a good beer."
Journalists have a problem. British people have a problem. That's how it is. The world seems crazy right now, but don't worry, it's always been crazy. I think so. So the US-China trade war is pretty intense right now. But the important thing to understand, especially with tech, is that this dates back a lot longer. So one of the things I want to talk about is the Vasinger Arrangement, 1996, was post-Cold War. Simplify it, it's basically let's check which chips and hardware and tanks and whatever we sell to other countries to make sure they can't be used for things we don't like. So it already meant all the top chips couldn't be sold to certain countries without special arrangements so that you can simulate nuclear weapons or gyroscopes that you put in a nuclear missile and so on. Then let's go to 2005. You had RAND, which is essentially an arm of the US government with the way they work with them, doing a report into how Huawei is a danger. You had 2012 House of Representatives calling Huawei a national security threat. This is all pre-Trump, right? You had hilariously the NSA actually hacked Huawei and infiltrated them. That came out with Snowden. Project Shotgun. So I mean, they're attacking Huawei for being potentially surveilling US citizens while they're openly doing that to them. And then Trump comes in. So the trade war really starts kicking off at this point. And of course, China it's been proven that they were doing cyber espionage against the US and IP theft and so on. So it really starts to ramp up, and they start doing sanctions. In early 2019, they claim, still in court, claim that Huawei evaded sanctions against Iran and used US banks. So they arrest the daughter of the founder of Huawei, and they start rolling in all these different sanctions that keep getting more and more as time goes on. They brought sanctions against companies like Sugon and Hygon. Sugon makes the data centers for TikTok. They also did 28 companies and research institutes. They said that they were involved in surveilling and otherwise suppressing Uyghurs. Whether you believe that America cares about that or not is another question. But so SenseTime, which was at the time the largest, the most valuable AI startup, they were caught up in it. MEGV, and these sanctions essentially mean US companies can't work with them without express permission by the US Commerce Department. So like NVIDIA can't sell supercomputing companies GPUs. That's a pretty big deal. Then this January, we're like, okay, trade war starting. They've got an agreement, starting to relax a bit, and then COVID came along, and obviously it came from China. China may or may not have been slow to tell anyone, and then you add in the conspiracy theories that have no grounding in truth, but that the Trump administration likes to push about that it was an intentional lab creation.
The lab, yeah, that's it. Just like when Pompeo said that, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, no.
So if you listen to this and you believe that, no. But either way, it's used. Trump's got a very difficult re-election campaign. He needs an enemy. It can't just be the press. So he's really kind of pushing on that it's China. So we saw this year again more Huawei restrictions. So now they've blocked companies, including TSMC, which makes semiconductors. They've blocked them from making chips for Huawei.
Which makes some semiconductors for everyone, including like major American companies, and they're just like dragging TSMC into this is because Taiwan is the key battleground, and this is basically because just like all the manufacturing that's moving in from China to Taiwan, because it you can still do business with Taiwan. So basically, it's going to be very interesting how that develops in terms of Taiwan was the world's supplier of electronics anyway.
And TSMC was neutral ground, right? Like they made chips for US companies, made chips for Chinese companies, made chips for Russian companies.
Yeah.
Right. And then so they essentially said, you have to choose between making chips for all of America or with Huawei. And then as part of that, they're going to build a $12 billion factory in the US for undisclosed but probably quite sizable incentives. Then in May, we had 33 more companies and research institutions blocked again for human rights. And
including, again, a whole bunch of AI companies, because, you will notice a pattern there.
One of the interesting ones was Cloud Mines, which is also SoftBank.
Well, yes, and CloudMinds is responsible for a product that might be familiar to our European listeners and maybe even those in the US, the amazingly boring Pepper robot. This thing that is, it's just like, it kind of competes against these kind of robotic systems that are essentially tablets on wheels. So in this respect, Pepper wins. It's got arms, and it's got a semblance of legs, and it's got a head and eyes, and it can emote, but essentially it is a tablet on wheels. And where they've been very successful is infiltrating various futuristic customer service experiences. So, for example, I've seen one just permanently displayed in London King's Cross and Pancras station, and is supposedly, it's supposed to answer questions, but every time I stumble upon it, it kind of it is hanging its head in shame because it does no longer work.
And also, it offers you taco for some reason whenever you couldn't answer a question. He's like, "Do you want a taco?"
Could it actually give you a taco though?
It doesn't.
Oh, that's even worse. Yeah, see, that's the thing. So it's objectively terrible on a customer experience level. Turns out it may or may not be also objectively terrible on a helping abet human rights abuses level. Although compared to the last year's sanctions, last year's had very detailed explanations of what these companies were doing.
Yes.
This time there's no real explanation of what CloudMinds did. I reached out to the US government and they gave me a nice no comment.
Yes, but the interesting bit here is people have been saying pretty much since 2018, I think, that these sanctions might actually accelerate China's move towards self-reliance in terms of technology. And I think we're certainly seeing that in terms of state investment, because that's another thing.
Yeah, so I mean, Tencent, which does everything you can think of, including being the world's largest video game producer, and also being China's
like
Spotify.
Amazon combined with Facebook and combined
Spotify.
With...
I mean,
yeah,
like the WeChat is obviously like a super app that we don't really have here. But so they've said over 5 years they're going to spend 70 billion, which when I first read I thought was a typo. 70 billion on cloud, on AI, on all those kind of future
Quantum
things.
Was there? Yeah.
Alibaba is going to do 28 billion over 3 years. And these are just two companies doing just under 100 billion as part of a wider Chinese government. Obviously, again, it's two things they're facing. They're facing this trade war and tech war, and also how do we rebuild after COVID, kind of stop the growth train of China. And so they are pumping as much money as they can into these new industries.
Now, somebody calls it the digital iron curtain. Churchill must be proud of that reference. He's probably rolling in his grave. But they're saying that this might probably stimulate China's, because now they're growing less dependent on the rest of the world, and they're going to start making their own chip. They're going to start developing all kinds of apps for themselves, and the digital divide between the East and the West is probably growing. And it's kind of hard to see at this point who's winning and who's losing in the who will be winning in the next 5 years or so, right?
Yeah, I mean, Obama blocked certain chips being sold to China back in the day, back in 2015, and a week after he did that, China started rolling out large investments in chip design and research. Blocking US chips works once. It stops what the person is building right now. But if they have the money to design it themselves, in 3 and 5 years, they can do it themselves completely, and you can't do anything to stop them. Well, to quote Omar from The Wire, you come as a king, you best not miss. I mean, the approach, a lot of people agree with sanctions against Huawei. A lot of intelligent people, and yet they all disagree with the way Trump did it, because it was slapdash, not really thought out, and it allowed Huawei time to adapt, and so they will survive. All right, so we've talked about what China is doing and how America is trying to hurt China. What is America doing for American technology? Some people in America, a couple of senators, a couple of congressmen, want to take that approach of kind of private-public partnership on exciting research, but for the National Science Foundation. The National Science Foundation has like an annual budget of 8 billion, give or take, and it does basic science research, lots of interesting stuff. But they're like, how about we give it another 100 billion over 5 years, which is a lot of money, but also the same as what Tencent and Alibaba are putting out as individual corporations. So, maybe it's not even enough money. But they want to look at like 10 core points, including AI, chips, and supercomputers, and try and build a future. You can't just keep complaining about China and keep saying, oh, it's unfair that they've got all this great technology. Oh, it's unfair that Huawei's 5G stuff is cheaper. How about you actually go out and build it yourself?
Yeah, compete on technology rather than sort of like trade policy.
I think it's quite an important thing that America forgot how much of its success came out of investment in basic research back in the day. In Cold War research funds,
Yep.
After Sputnik, in military funds back in the day, and they started coasting off that. So a lot of the great technologies that we see in corporations now came out of stuff built in labs by the National Science Foundation, by other, great research institutions.
Yeah, publicly funded.
Yeah, publicly funded. Google's originally came out of an NSF grant. And the problem is now, obviously, they give lip service to research, and you'll be thinking, what were you talking about? Google does tons of research, but they do end of stage, end of product research. And it's really taking things that other scientists have made and just doing that last mile stuff. And not enough people in America have been investing in that early stuff.
Right, which is the opposite of Huawei's approach. They basically just, once the tech war began, they just pour more money into research and development.
Yeah.
They just, that's the way, we're gonna put money somewhere. So we're gonna beef up this massive offices just outside of Shenzhen and hire more people.
Because I think their enduring commitment, I think, is 10% of revenue or profit. Sorry, goes to R&D, and I think they've been exceeding that for the past 2 or 3 years, and so absolutely mental sums, leading the world.
And it's almost like a digital space race where we're all running towards a goal. In your estimation, do you see the trade war, well, I guess the tech war or this digital iron curtain actually being good, like for the future of mankind, or in terms of technology development? Like, do you see that this will have like a positive effect on innovation? Now, assuming that one day this will be over, we'll all shake hands and be friends.
I mean, it's one of those things of, we all right now, like literally this podcast wouldn't be possible without all the technology that was built during the Cold War. But for the Cold War to happen, we had to run a very large chance that we were all wiped out and wouldn't exist right now because of nuclear weapons. So I think it's going to be a similar approach of, we're going to get a hell of a lot of new technology and cool innovations and cool scientific research coming out of everyone focused in this very competitive way. But because tensions are rising and rising, there's also a non-zero chance that a very bad outcome could come out of it, which is why,
Right.
Stay in your bunker, live off pickles.
Now that you mentioned the podcast production, hopefully one of those innovation that come out of it will help Max find his headphones. Well, I guess it's fair to say that this is an ongoing tech war, and we're going to keep you updated on what's going on. And for anybody who's interested, go on to aibusiness.com, and Sebastian will give you the latest.
Whoop, whoop.
If you want just another layer on top of your anxiety about the current events, you know where to go.
I can give you a list of things you should be anxious about. Just contact me. There are many.
I would say we're currently in the beta testing stage, so if you see something that doesn't look quite right, please let us know. I believe the About Us page is already working and there's some contact details there. But essentially, the website will continue to change and evolve as the organization changes. We have a lot more resource now, and I just want to finish this with a heartfelt shout out to Bill and Leo, who built the bloody thing. And yes, I love you guys. Thank you very much.
Where can people find this podcast, Max? Every time I ask you give me a different answer.
All right, so we're available on SoundCloud, Google Podcast. I believe we're also on Spotify. Most importantly, on the website, you'll find us in podcasts in resources section. But it will also always remain at the top of the website. So if you want to listen to the latest issue, just navigate right to the website and you're going to see it. Email me if you have an idea, if it's a good one. Like you come with the king. Better not miss.
I'm glad we're in a place where we can quote The Wire. All right, so where can people find you guys?
You can find me on Twitter at Seb Moss, on LinkedIn at Sebastian Moss, on the internet at Googling my name, and in my basement with my pickles.
And I'm sitting in the loft in a nice sort of like northeastern part of London. You can find me here or on Twitter, Instagram, email, and basically on the site every single day until I die.
Oh, great.
Well, you will catch up with you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening.
Bye, everybody.